Hello, everybody, and welcome to our virtual curriculum night 2022. Thank you all for joining us. If you happen to be watching this recording, thank you for watching this after the fact. I know we had a lot of kids who are in flag football or soccer who couldn't make it tonight, or at least watch it live. So hopefully you're getting a chance to watch this as a recorded version instead. So a couple of announcements before we completely get started here. The first thing I want to share out is that all proofs for the school pictures have been shared or should have been emailed to you. So if you ordered school pictures for your child, you should have gotten an email with a proof already. If you have not, you're going to please email Donna Wiedeberg at raidermail.org, and our chat moderator, Mrs. Lee, is going to put that in the chat so you can see that. Make sure the spelling is correct so she gets that, and then you'll get your digital proof. Also, an update on that, those should be ordered for the entire district tomorrow. And Mrs. Wiedeberg said it takes about a week for those to get in, so hopefully we'll be seeing class pictures maybe by the end of next week or the week after, because we do have a short week next week. So with that being said, let's get into our actual curriculum night stuff. Hopefully you have your play at home guide handy with you. There's a lot of great stuff that's in here. Some of the things we're going to be using tonight are kind of a play at home, and so you're going to be using that at your place, wherever you happen to be watching this. And then you're also going to notice some Pokemon cards. We have staff Pokemon cards. All of our staff members here at South have gotten put on a Pokemon card, and so they all pick some different things. We've got some dad jokes mixed in there. We've got some fun facts about your teachers in there, the things they like to drink in case you want to bring something to them. That's all in there for you, so make sure that you have that kind of handy. So we will be referencing that a couple of times tonight. So let's get started. Let's talk about all the great stuff that we do here at South, curriculum-wise, student-wise, all of that. So first thing I want to share with you, and I have to apologize, it was Spirit Week this week, and so we had Red Raider Pride Day today. So I'm in my sweatshirt today. I thought, you know what though? There's no place like South sweatshirts, perfect time for it. So if Mr. Ayler, you're watching this, sorry I'm not super dressed up. I get probably docked a few points for that. But I'm going to get bonus points now because I'm going to talk about our strategic plan. So our district has just kind of redone our strategic plan, and you'll see this little handout in your Play at Home guide. We're going to talk tonight a lot about that learning and the culture parts of the strategic plan because it has a big part of what we do here at South. We'll talk a little bit about the future stuff, but really, honestly, mostly what we're going to talk about tonight has to do with that learning and that culture in our three kind of main areas of our strategic plan in developing confident and powerful learners. So, with that being said, one of the very first things we talk about is our culture here at school. And social emotional learning is a big part of that. It's probably the most important part of that, actually, is for our first and second graders, making sure that we're just good humans, that we can handle our emotions, we can talk about things, we can recognize those. We realize that what we do affects others. And so we do this in lots of different ways. One of the ways that we award those great behaviors is through a program called Raider Badges. And so I'm sure your students have probably talked to you about Raider Badges. They've probably talked to you about Raider Badges that they've earned, how many we've had. We just had Wild West Day last week because we reached 1,000 Raider Badges as a school, which is super, super awesome. We're already actually over halfway to our next goal, which is getting to Safari Day at 2,500 badges. We just met 1,300 today, as a matter of fact, which is kind of cool. So, speaking of Raider Badges, you can earn a Raider Badge for your child just by participating tonight. So all you need to do is drop your student's name in the chat so we can get them crossed off on the list here, and we will get them a badge. And let me show you what this badge looks like. This is a special badge. Here, let me find it. Here we go. It is a There's No Place Like Home Curriculum Night badge. So this is a legendary badge. The only way you can earn this badge is by participating tonight or watching this later on. So if you are watching this as a recorded version, just send me a Class Dojo message. Hey, I watched Curriculum Night, and I will get your student a legendary badge right there. So looking pretty cool, a little different than last year's. So Raider badges, let's talk about those, what those things are. Raider badges are kind of a gamification of sorts of school. So if your student has ever played video games, you probably realize that video games are very good at motivating kids to continue to play video games. That's the whole business. And what they do, one of the things that they do is they award or give achievements for all of the different things that they do within that game. Raider badges is a lot like achievements that video games use. And so anything that you do here at South, you can earn a Raider badge for it. You can earn them for good things like being a good friend, just managing your emotions, being a social detective. You can earn them for the digital content that you do in Zern, in Freckle, which are some things that we're going to talk about a little bit later today. You can earn them for being a speed reader, improving your reading as you go out throughout the year. Pretty much anything that you practice or work on here at school, we have a Raider badge for it. Now, when students earn a Raider badge, what's the point? Why do I need to keep going? Because you can earn another level for that. So let's say your student earns a speed reader badge. They can earn that badge again, and then this time they get it with a level 2 on it. And then they can earn it again with a level 3, and so on. So it's kind of one of those things that never ends. We keep track of all the badges that they earn. Once they get to 10 badges, I take their picture. I put their picture up on our Raider badge earner wall, and then it progresses throughout the year as they gain their Raider badges. So this is kind of goes along with our PBIS that we have here at school, which is Positive Behavior Intervention Supports for Students. And one of those things is rewarding students and having celebrations throughout the year. So when we get to 1,000 Raider badges, we had Wild West Day. When we get to 2,500 badges, we're going to have Safari Day. And then when we get to the next milestone, we're going to have I'm not going to tell you. That's a surprise. We have to wait till we get to 2,500. So let's kind of segue right into talking about students. And we're going to have our first guest up on board here today, which is Mrs. Watchhorn. So Mrs. Watchhorn, who is our school counselor, is going to join me here. And we're going to talk about a few things. Hi, Mrs. Watchhorn.
Hi, Mr. Meyer.
She's new to the curriculum night extravaganza that we have here. So what we're going to talk about is a couple of things. But first, we want to talk about bullying in schools. So our school district has kind of gotten this new kind of a professional development tool called Totem PD. And Totem PD is great because it has a whole bunch of different courses for teachers to take. One of those happens to be one called Bullyology. So our whole district is actually doing this. We're taking kind of a different stance or maybe a more strategic approach towards bullying, what bullying is, and how we deal with that here at schools. So one of the things we're going to talk about is what is bullying. So there's a couple of different things here, but this program has, I think, a really good definition for what bullying is, and it kind of breaks it down into parts. Bullying behavior is intentional, which means a student is doing something intentionally to another student to be mean, to gain power, to gain control, something like that on another student. It's also repeated, which means it's not just a one-time thing. It happens over and over and over again. And then it's kind of one-sided. So if we have students who are, griping back and forth at each other, they're yelling, that's not necessarily this way. Really, bullying behavior is truly just one kid just constantly maybe picking on or knocking down or making another student feel very bad. So those are kind of the what we define as bullying. It's different from just other misbehavior, and because it has something to do with power differential. So one student is showing power over another student. Okay. Now we have a lot of times where students will come and they'll say to us, "I'm being bullied. This kid's bullying me," and we take all of those reports serious. But sometimes when they do report that they're being bullied, it's just a fact of a student is being mean to another student in that situation. So maybe they're playing a game. They didn't like the rules. They didn't like how they got out in kickball, and they said something mean to that student. Not necessarily bullying behavior, but it's just something that we also work with our other programs that we have, and how to deal with other students and the things that they do and their reactions. So when we talk about bullying in our school, we do want to encourage all students, anytime that they feel like they're being bullied or they're in a situation where something like is kind of like bullying, that they do report that. And so they can report that to teachers, they can report that to you, they can report that to me, whoever that happens to be, and then we can do some investigations on that. But the big thing with that is what do we do once we have a situation where a student is bullying? And what we do is we teach resiliency. So resiliency is kind of a very big part of this PD that we had here because it teaches students how to deal with stress. And typically when you have a bully, or is doing something, or even the student who is getting bullied, they are having a hard time dealing with some sort of stress in their life. Maybe that stress is that bully picking on them. Maybe the bully is having some sort of stress in their life and they're having a hard time dealing with that. So what we do is we do teach some resiliency skills. And we teach them not just to the bully, but then also to that student who is being bullied as well, just to kind of give kids what they need. So resiliency, that's big. It's huge for us. And we do a lot of resiliency teaching with all of our kids, really. And one of the programs we use that Mrs. Watchorn teaches with is a program called Social Detectives and Social Thinking.
Social thinking.
And so, Mrs. Watchorn, can you tell us a little bit about what social thinking is, maybe some of the verbiage that you use with that when you do teach it?
So social thinking is a program that we use that kind of helps students to understand how to interact with one another appropriately. We use a lot of vocabulary like expected, and expected behaviors make other people feel very comfortable around you, and it makes you feel comfortable. And there are things that you can look for clues on what other people are doing in a situation and things like that to kind of figure them out. We also use words like unexpected. And unexpected just means that that's not something that's appropriate for that situation. And it makes people feel uncomfortable. And so we also talk about situations, and situations are the place, the people, and what's happening with those people. And so what's really hard about social situations is they change. And you can have lots of different situations even in one place. And so we talk about that like at school, when we are in the classroom, there's a lot of small groups and stuff happening. So even though we're in a school building and we're teachers and students and all kinds of people here, there's still lots of little things happening within those bigger picture things. And so trying to figure out kind of what's expected. So we talk a lot about looking for clues and kind of helping to guide what you're supposed to do in different situations. So we also talk about like the way you behave at a restaurant is not going to be the same as the way you behave at a park. And so trying to kind of figure some of that out.
Yeah. And I think the big part of that is too that you gets the kids to think about how their actions affect other people around them, because sometimes they don't realize that. So we're playing kickball. I'm upset. I'm mad. I throw a fit. I throw the ball. I kick it. Do whatever else. I don't really think about my ramifications on everybody else. Well, now everybody else can't play the game because you kicked the ball away, or we have to stop playing because there's a situation that has happened that's big enough that we have to quit. So, some of those things are good because it brings that awareness for those students to think, wow, what I do does affect others, and it affects how they think about me and what they think about me if I'm continually doing things that make people feel uncomfortable. And so that's a big part of like what we talk about. It comes into the school, into the classrooms, works out on the playground, all the different places.
And perception, and that we can be in the same situation, and what you take away from it and what I take away from it might be different.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are definitely the things that are big with that. And like I said, the interaction with each other, that realization of like what I do affects other kids is big. Right, and that's kind of, like I said, what kind of goes into our culture here at Sydney Public Schools. So circling back to that bullying stuff, and I just want to kind of make sure that we all understand like what you can do at home to help out with this. And so just understanding the definition of bullying is kind of that first step. Is it really bullying, or is it just a situation that happened that somebody was just mean to my kid or something like that? Because those things happen. We talk about that all the time. I have recess incidences that come to me all the time, and we talk about how this student got mad at another student, and we're first graders and we're second graders, and sometimes we don't use our words when we are upset. And so, we talk about how it's not okay, but if you yell and scream at a first grader, chances are they're probably going to smack you back. It's one of those things. It's not okay, but that's kind of what we do. That's kind of where we're at. And so, understanding that definition of what bullying truly is a big help. Talking with your child about what bullying is, how they can understand and what they can look for. And then also encouraging your student to report anything that they feel is bullying. It's not tattletelling. It's not trying to get somebody in trouble. We're trying to give students what they need. And what they need is some help in resiliency training. How do you deal with those stresses? School is a stressful place. It absolutely is. I mean, you have to work hard all day long. There's a lot of times where you have to sit, and then we finally get to go out to recess, and it's just wild and crazy out there. It's a tough place. Tough place to manage your emotions, and then work it within everybody else as well, too. So those are the things that you can do to help out. There are extra, and I wish I had the links to that, but I will make sure I share it out on Class Dojo. But Totem PD has 3 parent Courses. Yeah, they're courses. Yeah, they're courses. They have 3 parent courses. There's one on resiliency, which is fantastic. There's another one on managing guilt. Is what it's called.
Shame and guilt.
Shame and guilt, right? And so how do you like discipline your child and hold expectations with them without having that shame and that guilt put on you? And then there's another one that's based on kind of monitoring screen time, those sorts of things. And so all 3 of those are free. They're very good resources. They don't take a lot of time. They have printable things. They have videos that you can watch. It's all pretty neat. So I will make sure I share that out on Class Dojo, but I did want to get that information out to you guys that resource is there. It's out there for everybody. That you guys can kind of practice and do along with the stuff that we have. So yeah, that's kind of how that goes. And I think we are ready for our first giveaway.
Ooh.
So we have a lot of giveaways. I'm going to talk about a couple of them here first. One giveaway here, however you're watching this little show we have here, if you want to take a picture of that and shoot that out on social media, I would appreciate it. And if you happen to shoot it out on Twitter and you tag myself at Meyer Tech, okay, you can be entered into a drawing for one of our family games here, which is called Rapid Rumble.
Ooh.
Have you ever played that?
I have not.
I have not played it either, but it looked really cool. It's the fastest, funniest, cleverest category game. So it's for 2 to 5 players, which is pretty cool. You have to be either 6 or under 99 years old to play this game. So I think that fits most of our audience members out there, which is pretty awesome. So Rapid Rumble, this is a social media post. So if you post on social media your picture of your setup of how you're watching Virtual Curriculum Night, you might win some games, which is kind of cool. Then, I'll tell you what, I'm a sucker for giant board games, or giant anything, truly. Like if you put the word giant in front of it, I'm probably buying it. Or if you make it shiny. One of those 2 things. Yeah. Make it shiny and giant, oh, my money's gone. But what we're going to do here, this is a random draw for anybody who's participating tonight. Giant, look at how big this is. And some of it's green, so it's disappeared. So you can look through it,
it's
which
gone.
is super, super cool. Anyways, giant sorry, which is so cool.
Show the back, then it shows like how big it is against real humans.
But then it's gone over here.
Yeah,
so
it's still, your body's disappeared. It's weird.
It's weird. Yeah, you can kind of see through. It doesn't actually do that in
have
real
Mrs.
life.
Onstott check that out.
Doesn't do that in real life, but
Yeah.
maybe,
Okay.
I don't know, whatever it is.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah, so giant sorry, which is, this is like probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. Anyways, you can win this just by showing up tonight. So all you have to do is just put your student's name in the chat. Mrs. Lee is crossing those names, or highlighting those names. We're not crossing them off. We're going to highlight those names. And then I'll do a random draw, and someone's winning giant sorry that you cannot actually see through. But on our green screen studio, you can. So there we go. Hey, that might be our only mess up tonight. We're doing good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mrs. Watchhorn,
yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Off you go. We're ready for our next one and checking time. I'm a little ahead of schedule, which is really cool, but still all right. Here we go. Mrs. Schneider is going to join us now. Mrs. Schneider is our instructional coach. Hi, Mrs. Schneider. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Meyer.
Thanks for joining us.
Glad
Mrs.
to be
Schneider
here.
is a frequent visitor on Curriculum. I think you've come to every one.
I have.
Yep.
I have.
She's a pro. She's a pro at this. Next year, she might be running it herself.
Doubtful. No.
Maybe not. Maybe that's
Maybe
still
not.
gonna be- maybe that's still big in Mr. Myers things.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, Mrs. Schneider, we're going to talk a little bit about our assessment.
Let's
okay?
do.
Because
Yes.
assessment's kind of a big deal here at schools, all schools pretty much. So we're going to talk about those things. So hopefully you had in your parents, no, this is not the parents, the parents.
is not.
Is in your kids' backpack or folder, you hopefully have your MAPS report and then your Acadians report. And we're going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about what they look like. And how they can do that. And hopefully what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that now. So you don't have to talk about that during conferences. And then you can actually talk about important things at conferences, like, your kid.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about this stuff. So let's do this first here. We're going to look at this report. Look at that. We're hidden now.
Perfect.
Mrs. Schneider, we're
Perfect.
completely hidden behind
Yes,
the
I
reports
like
here.
being hidden. That's great.
All right, so if you happen to have this report handy, take a look at it now, and we're going to go over it, what it kind of looks like and what it means here. So this is our MAP report, and it's got a bunch of bar graphs on it.
Yes.
This bar graph has information regarding your student's score, which is that blue graph. And then it also shows the normed grade level mean, which is in that yellow graph. And isn't there like a third graph too on some of those, on the ones that we sent home?
Well, if we put if we have the grade level
Yeah.
or the district.
The district
norm.
level on there, which I think we did, didn't we? I believe we did.
I think I sent that.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
So there might be a third one there. There might just be 2 that shows on here too. It just depends.
Yeah.
It depends on when we close the testing window.
Yes.
So anyway, so you can kind of see where your student is at compared to other students off of this rate on your scores, and actually you'll be able to see a historical set of your scores as well. So you can look back as many MAPS tests that they've taken. You can see all the scores, and so you can hopefully see a growth from the time they started in kindergarten until all the way through their 2nd grade. So that's what kind of shows over here. Okay, and we have math up on the top, and we have reading at the bottom. So that's that graph pretty much. Okay, let's take that graph away.
Okay.
And then let's show this graph. Okay?
Oh, okay.
This graph here is the, what's this one called? This is the
This is the
family
parent-
report.
yes,
the
family
family reports. And the family report shows some more specific information based off of your student and kind of where they're at. And it compares them from fall of last year to fall of this year.
Yes,
Okay?
this specific report does.
Exactly.
Like this time of year. Yes.
Exactly, yes. So this would be if they're a 1st grader now, this would be their fall score in kindergarten, and then their fall score in 1st grade. If they're a 1st grader, this would be fall score in first. If they're a 2nd grader, it would be fall score in 1st grade. Fall score in 2nd grade.
Yes.
Hopefully you all understand what I'm saying. So you can kind of see the little bar graph there kind of shows where they're at. There's a little dotted line there that shows the national average achievement, and then it also gives you like a percentile of their growth. Okay, so when we talk about growth, growth is their improvement from one test score to the next test score.
Yes.
Okay, so we talk about growth a lot because we want students to
Grow.
You're right.
Yeah.
So when we have them grow like that, we want them to kind of be up as high as we can. And so obviously the average percentile is the 50th percentile. This is a nationally normed test, which means we're compared against students all across the nation.
Yes.
They take this test, and so that data you can kind of tell exactly kind of where your student is at. Now, the achievement that's down below that is kind of the same thing as growth, except for this is actually just their score, and so it shows their score, what percentile they're on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how well they learned that subject compared to their peers.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So then we have, just like I said there, so we have our math and our reading. Okay. So those are the reports that you have for MAPS.
For MAP, yes.
Okay. Very good. Anything else you want to add to that?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So let's take that away, and then let's talk more about some Acadience reports. So you have some Acadience things. I'll let you talk a little bit more about
Okay.
this than me.
So the Acadience reports, it just goes through the specific skills in each grade level that students are learning in order to be able to read. So the skills in 1st grade look a little bit different than those that are on the 2nd grade reports. So if your child's a 1st grader and you have that report in front of you, some of the big skills that they're working with are phoneme segmentation, and that's just being able to hear the individual sounds in words. And then they also are working on blending sounds together to read words and to measure if they know their letter sounds, and if they're able to do that. We do a test, what's called the nonsense word fluency test, and that it's like short nonsense words, like a CVC word such as like SOG, just to see if students know the sounds, because we don't want it to be a word they might be familiar with, because then we wouldn't get accurate testing data.
Yeah, you have to have a good sound awareness to be able to pass that test.
Yes, you really do.
Yep.
So the second indicator there shows if they can. If they know their sounds and they're able to blend those together into words. And then later, they don't have a score on 1st grade yet for oral reading fluency. That is tested more in the winter and spring in 1st grade, because they're just now putting words together.
Right.
And
they're emerging readers right now. Really going to be emerging readers most of the year. But we do start to kind of test that oral reading
together.
fluency.
Yep. And then if you're looking at a 2nd grade report, then your students, they're kind of graduated out. We're hoping that they know their sounds and they can associate sounds with letters. And they're getting fluent in putting sounds together to make words and reading words, fluently in a passage.
Absolutely.
So they will see that nonsense word fluency score. They'll have that nonsense word fluency score again, and then oral reading fluency, and it's called ORF, for oral reading fluency score as well.
Yeah.
There.
And so it's interesting from 1st grade to 2nd grade. That's kind of where we have a kind of a shift in our assessments. And so, like I said, we have emerging readers when they come into 1st grade, and then when we get to 2nd grade, that's when we kind of start to flip them over.
Yep.
Like, you should be kind of reading here a little bit more independently, that sort of stuff. So our Acadience looks different. Our MAPS looks a lot different.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that. So our MAPS test for 1st grade. It's a K1 test, K2 test, I'm sorry, K2 test. And it reads the test to the students. It
Yes.
reads the answers to them, the questions to them. I think even the reading passages as well. I think it all
It
does.
does.
And it reads
It's
the whole
oral
thing.
comprehension.
Right.
Yep.
So when your student is in first grade, that reading stamina doesn't have to be built up as high because it is reading them to them. And really what we're testing is we're testing those comprehension skills.
Yep.
Being able to listen, and then also in math, just testing those math skills. But we're making sure that the reading is not a hurdle for them to have to get by. So we actually know what they're doing. Well, when they get to second grade, that all changes.
Yes.
Now they have to read. They have to read it all. Questions, answers, reading passages. They're on their own.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
It is
It's
tough.
really tough. So
It
that
is
first test, it was hard.
Yeah.
So if you happen to see your MAPS report for a second grader and you're thinking, gosh, this is low.
Ooh, took
don't
a little
worry.
dive there.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
worry.
Yeah.
Just pump the brakes here. We're all right. We're fine. We teach that stamina. They will make great growth.
They will.
It's just, man, it's almost a slap in the face that first time they
It
take that
is.
test and they have to read the whole
It
thing.
is.
And they're like, how many more do I have to do? Oh, you're almost there. Keep going. So it's tough.
It is.
And that change does happen from first to second grade. So just be aware of that. That's okay. If they did fall, they didn't make a lot of growth from the end of the year or from first grade to second grade. That's really why that test has changed. We've moved that target. We've added extra expectations. And that's what we work towards. So getting those students to build up to be able to read for a sustained amount of time is huge. So how can you help at home? Read.
Yeah.
That's just the best thing
Read
to do.
to them, read with them,
read with
whatever
them.
they're
Yeah,
ready for.
exactly. Whatever you can do to get them used to. I mean, just hearing those words, comprehending what they're listening to or what they're reading. Like, that's the way to do it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So, talking about that, let's talk about South specifically as I
okay.
struggle over words
Let's do.
here. Let's talk about MAPS. And I want to show this to you because we just talked about how hard those tests are. So I'm going to throw up some stuff here. Let's start with reading. Okay, so this is not something that you have. This is something that we have here, and I'm sharing it with you because this is more of our district-wide. And I'm sorry it's a little fuzzy here, but I'll kind of walk you through this. There's a couple of graphs that you see there. There's a little diamond in those graphs. Okay, that diamond right there is what is called projected growth. So when students take their MAPS test, MAP has decided, or NWEA, who does the test, they have said, hey, your students should see probably about this much growth. They figured this out. They've had millions of people take this test. They have lots of data to back this up, okay? The bar graph that you see behind that is our observed growth at our school, specifically. So when you see those graphs higher than that diamond, that's a great
That is
thing.
a good thing.
That's an
Yes.
absolutely great thing. So when you're looking at our fall scores last year, you can see our average score and kind of where our percentiles were at. So last year, start of the year, we were at the 59th percentile in first grade reading. We were at the 44th percentile in second grade reading. That's where we were. Then spring, last year, our first and second graders that took that test, where we ended up at, we went from the 59th percentile to the 67th percentile in first grade reading. Great improvement. And then look at this. Second grade reading, 44th percentile. We jumped our kids up to the 84th percentile. That's huge.
Doing great
it's
things.
Tremendous work.
Doing
Like I
great
said, we
things.
will get them there. So don't worry about that. That's going to be something that we can do. That means that our students perform better than 84% of the nation, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
If you look over at the very, very kind of towards the right there, there's one little report that shows under the grade level norms, our school conditional growth percentile. This means our school had growth. Where do we stack up amongst everybody else? Well, we were at the 74th percentile in growth in first grade reading. We were at the 99th percentile in second grade reading. That's huge. That's tremendous. The students worked hard. They got what they needed. They showed what they learned. It was all fantastic stuff.
Great stuff.
I'm going to take this away. Let's talk about math now. Math, the same thing. Here we are again. You can see that the little diamond there shows our growth, our projected growth we should have had, and then our bar graph in the back shows the growth that we actually had.
Wow.
So, big time. Exactly. We started at the 68th percentile in first grade. We started at the 58th percentile in second grade in math. We jumped them both up past the 85th. So 85th in first grade, 86th in second grade, which is fantastic. And when we look at our school conditional growth percentiles, we were at the 94th percentile in first grade math for our growth. We were at the 99th again for second grade math. So, tremendous growth, tremendous growth. These kids work so hard. They get what they get. They gain so much knowledge.
Truly do.
I'm just babbling now, but I'm super excited about
So
this. I'm just
excited about
excited. Yeah, we're both excited about it.
Yeah.
We're data
We
geeks
are, yes.
and just love this stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. With that being said, let's do a little fun play-at-home activity.
Let's do.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Here's what we do. We do our Acadience testing. We identify students who are what we say below benchmark. If you're
Yes.
below benchmark, that's kind of an area where we want
Just
you
a
to get
target
to,
score.
like a
Yeah.
target score to
Yeah.
get there, right? If you're underneath of that score, no worries.
Might
We're
need a
going to do
little-
stuff.
yep,
We're going to
extra
give you
help.
extra boost. We're
Yep.
going to give you extra help, but we're also going to keep checking to make sure you're making progress.
Yes.
And that's by progress monitoring.
Yes.
Just like what it
Weekly
says.
progress monitor.
We
Yes.
monitor their progress.
Yes.
And so, kids, you get to flip the switch on your parents now. So in your Take It Home, Play at Home guide, here we go.
Yeah.
We have a paper that looks like this. This is the teacher version here, okay? So this is what the teacher would look like. Kids, you get to hold that one today. And if you happen to have a pen or a crayon or something, grab that thing, okay? Because you're going to keep track of how your parents' reading. So if you're going to make
Yes.
mom or dad read here in a second, they're going to read for 1 minute, okay?
You
Or
be
close
marking
to a
any
minute.
errors.
And
Yes.
you're going to mark any errors, okay? So this is what we do with our students once a week, or our normal tests that we do with them the 3 times a week, okay? And then there's the other one. Here's the reading passage right here, and we're going to be reading about being a bird keeper today. I didn't know a bird
Interesting.
keeper was a thing, but it
Interesting.
is.
Yeah.
So there we go. You're going to read about being a bird keeper. This is a 5th grade passage, by the way. We don't make our 2nd graders read this. This is a 5th grade passage. So parents, you're going to get this one, okay? Kids, you're going to get this one. All right, here we go. We're going to go for 1 minute. 1 minute sustained. You're going to read as fast as you can. Hey, listen, sometimes we read for fun. Sometimes we read for comprehension.
Yes.
Sometimes we read for speed. And I'm feeling the need for speed. This is speed
Just-
right here.
yes.
Just get after it. Get going, parents. Okay, so I'm going to count you down. I'm going to pretend to take time on here because I'm going to. Okay, here we go. Are we ready here? So parents ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Read.
Read as fast as you can. Keep track, kids. If they're making mistakes, you cross off those words. They don't get credit for those.
No.
Yep. Keep going. A minute is a long time.
Yes.
Mhm.
If they miss a word, help them out.
Yeah,
You
help
can
them.
give them the word.
Yep, you can sound it out for them
Yeah.
after they struggle a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give
Keep
them a
reading.
little time.
Keep going. Yep. All right. Learning about being a bee bird keeper.
Yeah, bird keeper.
keeper.
Not a beekeeper. Yeah.
Bird keeper. I just thought that was just like a bird owner.
Yeah.
Would there be multiple people, or multiple birds?
I don't know.
Because a beekeeper's a lot of them.
We might need to read this passage.
I think we might have to read this passage.
Yes.
I'll read it later on. Okay. We're almost there. About 10 more seconds. Keep going, parents. 10 more seconds. You can do
You've
it.
got it.
You can do it.
You've got this.
10. I'm not going to count down. 10. It was sorry.
Yeah,
10.
yeah. That
Okay,
was
stop. Good. Stop. Right there. Wow. Woo! Take a breath, parents. That's a long time.
It is.
I bet
It
you got
truly
pretty
is.
far. Okay, kids, you can kind of mark where they ended. Mark where they ended, and then if you go off to the left or the right, you have some numbers there. That shows you their oral reading fluency score.
Yes.
That
How
means
many words
how many
per
words
minute?
you read per minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how many.
Ish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's how many words per minute you read. And now, if you had any mistakes, you subtract those off.
Yes.
Right? You don't get
Yes.
credit for mistakes. But
Yes.
growth mindset. We keep working at it. You'll get those words, parents.
You will.
You'll get those
You
words.
will.
You keep practicing. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Schneider.
Great
You're not
job.
done
Oh.
yet. Stay
Oh.
here because we have to do another giveaway.
Oh, I love giveaways.
Okay,
Let's
so
do
here we
this.
go. And for this giveaway here, hopefully parents, you've gotten your breath back. You need to get your Pokemon cards ready to go here because we're going to have a question regarding our Pokemon cards. On our Pokemon cards, I have a couple dad jokes hidden amongst those. I want to know, so the first person in the chat that can give me the correct answer is going to be their winner here. So ready, Mrs. Lee? You've got the answers correct? Okay, she should have the answers, but we will get the answers to her. All right, so here we go. The question is, what do you call a fake noodle? Don't give them any hints.
Okay.
What do you call a fake noodle? Hopefully you just maybe know the answer to that. Maybe you're a dad joke connoisseur like myself, and you just know that answer. But if not, check the Pokemon cards, and someone will be the first person to do that. And what are you winning? That's another good question here. What are you winning?
Ooh.
You are going to win Steal the Bacon. Steal the Bacon.
Oh,
Yeah,
bacon.
Steal the Bacon. That's what you're going to try to win.
Yeah.
So if you can win Steal the Bacon, all you have to do is just get the answer to that dad joke, post it, and you're good to go. Okay. Now you can leave. Thank you,
Okay,
Mrs. Schneider.
thanks for having me.
Thanks
See
for
ya,
joining
everyone.
us. All right, very good. So moving right along with our show here. Let's see where we're at with time. Pretty darn close. Mrs. Krista Pittum is going to join us next. Hi, Mrs. Pittum.
How are you?
Oh, very good. Mrs. Pittum is new to South this year.
Yes.
She is our Title I teacher. So if you remember from the beginning of the year, we talked about South being a Title I school and those things that means. Basically, it means we get federal money for helping students get what they need. That's all we do. If we have students who need extra help in reading, we give it to them. We have students who need extra help in math, we give it to them. We would do that stuff anyways. But it's also nice to have an extra person on hand to kind of help out in those areas, and that's what Mrs. Pittum does. So, Mrs. Pittum is going to talk to us today a little bit about Sunday Phonics. That's what we're going to talk about. So Sunday Phonics is our program that we use here at South that is really focused on reading. And not just reading, but reading fluently. Okay? So we practice with a strong background in phonics. That's kind of what we want. So, talking about those things. All right, so I'm going to move this here first. Let's talk about our, hang on. I still needed that. Sorry. I put away my notes. Okay. I already kind of talked about Sunday Phonics, but do you have anything else to add as far as what that program is and how it does?
Yeah, so Sunday is a multi-sensory program that focuses a lot on phonemic awareness and phonics. And multi-sensory just means that it reaches auditory and visual and tactile learners. So it incorporates letter sounds, reading words, reading sentences, writing sentences and sight words. And then it also uses a lot of tracing on the table to get that tactile. And then there's a component called touch spell. Your kiddos can probably explain it to you. I'm sure they're really familiar with it by now.
We're going to practice that. Yes.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah,
Yep. So basically it works on phonics and phonemic awareness.
Perfect. So we use a word here at school, that's a fancy word, called foundational skills. What are foundational skills?
So foundational skills, this takes me back to college. Foundational skills are phonics, phonemic awareness, working on fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, and I said before, Sunday focuses a lot on the phonics piece. So the phonemic awareness just means rhyming, breaking apart words, putting them back together, so manipulating sounds, so changing map to man, changing sounds around, and then phonics is linking letters to sounds.
Yeah. So really it's like the breakdown of all the skills that you need to be a good reader.
Yes.
Right? And so when we talk about math, those basic skills are like a number sense. How you can manipulate numbers around and really truly understand what the values of those are. Reading is just that same kind of thing. Breaking words down, being able to manipulate the sounds, being able to do all that stuff. So when we talk about foundational skills, that's exactly what we're talking about. All the things that you need to be a good reader.
Yes.
Right? So how does Sunday Phonics then help our students with fluency?
So fluency just means that you're able to read quickly with accuracy and expression. And Sunday basically helps us by doing a lot of repeated reading. So students are doing repeated reading throughout the week. And then decoding words is basically the foundation for being able to read fluently. And this is what Sunday kind of works a lot on, is being able to decode or read words quickly and fluently.
Yeah. And so Sunday Phonics, you should back up a little bit here too. Sunday, actually, we use Sunday Phonics from kindergarten all the way up into like 5th, 6th grade. Mm-hmm. And so it really builds upon itself, which is nice. So anything that we're learning here at South will take on to those kids at North as they teach from there. And it really does kind of incrementally get harder and just start kind of chunking things together. So when we first start reading with words, we're talking about individual sounds. And then pretty soon they start chunking sounds together, instead of breaking those things apart.
Yeah.
And so identifying those to be able to read quickly and easily is a kind of a big thing. So let's talk a little bit about our interventions. Okay, so we talked with Mrs. Schneider a little bit about how we do some interventions for students who might need a little extra help or a little extra boost. So in Sunday, who might get an intervention?
So anyone can actually any of the kids at South can get interventions.
You mean
and
even if you're reading 100 words per minute, you might get an intervention?
You just might.
That's crazy.
So Sunday is monitored weekly. So we do things called mastery checks in Sunday, which basically assesses the skills that the students worked on that week. If they don't pass the mastery check with 17 out of 20, it goes into a database that everybody at South has access to. So paras, teachers, everybody works with these kiddos if they don't pass the mastery check. So essentially, if they don't pass, they just work with a para or myself or their teacher We'll kind of reteach some of the skills from that week, and then we'll retest them and see if they pass again. So it changes weekly who gets interventions.
Absolutely, it does. And you might just get an intervention on a certain skill just because that sound was hard,
Yep.
you know, or maybe you missed a few days or something like that, and we're going to catch you up. So Sunday is a really good program about spiraling. When we say spiraling, it means it reteaches or retouches on skills that you've learned earlier. And so instead of just saying, hey, our sound is the CH digraph this week and then we're never going to touch it again, no, we actually get practice with that throughout the year as it goes. And so we make sure that if a student has it, they're going to keep it and maintain it throughout the year. And just like what you said, everybody can get an intervention. And that's kind of the point. You know, if you need extra help, we're going to give you some extra help. And that might be a para. It might be Mrs. Pittum. It might be the classroom teacher. It might even be me. I might even just go give some interventions to kids because I love teaching phonics. I've always loved teaching phonics. It's like the language of life, you know. So you know, those are the ways that we kind of do that, which is nice. And we keep track of that. We monitor that. And what's kind of been nice about Sunday Phonics is that we've kind of gotten rid of the old spelling lists. And the old spelling lists, I mean, they were always like the traditional thing. This is what you did. Hey, Monday, come home from school. Where's your spelling list? Let's practice your spelling words. And then what would happen is the kids would just memorize those words. And they weren't actually truly getting those skills. Mm-hmm. So we haven't gotten rid of spelling tests. That's what our mastery check is. Our mastery check is a spelling test. But the students have to have those skills. They have to know those sounds.
It's working more on patterns and spelling patterns and word chunks rather than just memorizing a spelling list for the week and then forgetting it the next week.
Exactly, yeah. You know, so when we all dreaded the days of the week spelling list that went home, that's gone, right? So,
Yes.
So you do that spelling test instead, which is, you got to know it. And truly, if they pass that mastery check, they probably have those sounds down. They have it down, and we're good to go. We just do some quick checks throughout the year, and we're all ready. So that's kind of how that works. So Sunday Phonics is done during a time called win time, right? What I need, win time. And we do lots of different things during win time, not just Sunday Phonics. So what are some other things that we do during that time?
So all of the classrooms have a para during this time. So paras are a really important part of win time as well. Paras are, so while the teacher is working on Sunday in small groups, paras are meeting with small groups, working on those foundations of reading, working on extra Sunday practice, maybe some fluency reads, reading for comprehension passages, and then our kiddos are also doing Freckle, and I think you all will talk about that later. Yeah. But our kids will also, this is a good time for them to practice reading on Freckle, which is an app for the iPad. Yeah. But our paras in win time do an amazing job at really like taking ownership of our kids at South and really working to support them in reading as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so kind of how we do that, we have our paras, and they kind of match up with the classroom. So they have one classroom in first grade, one classroom in second grade, so they truly get to know those kids, and they truly take an ownership of that learning just like our teachers do. Yep. And so you got to know, we have tons of people on the side of your student, helping them out to get them to where they need to be.
Yes.
Right. So, that's a big part of it there. And win time it's a great time. It's about an hour each day. And like I said, we have a lot of just kind of small group instruction that's going on. It's busy time, but the kids are super engaged. And,
yep. And they know routines, and they do what they need to do. So
absolutely, yeah.
Got it down.
They do. They have it down very, very well. So, well, thank you so much for talking to us about Sunday Phonics. Yeah. You will probably, I don't even know if you know this or not, but you're going to find or get some reading tips from Mrs. Pittum as our instructional coach. Our instructional coach already left. As our title teacher, we'll do some kind of outreach stuff, and you'll kind of throw out some reading tips or some things you can do at home, maybe even a fun contest here or there to just kind of promote reading and just kind of having that stuff at home. So as far as like what can your parents do at home to support Sunday? Again, just read. Just read.
Yep.
You know, don't worry about the sounds that we're working on. Don't worry about drilling them on spelling lists and stuff. I mean, truly just have fun. Let's build a love for learning and a love for reading. That's probably going to go the farthest.
Yep. Let us worry about the phonics piece, and you just have fun and read.
Yeah, we can break all that down. We'll do all that stuff, and then reading at home is great.
Absolutely.
You know? And we will. We'll talk about Freckle a little bit later on when I have some of our first grade teachers coming up, which is going to be here pretty soon. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So let's do a little at home participation thing. In your play at home guide, you have a word list And then on the back side, a couple sentences here. So these are like slides that would be on a Sunday Phonics lesson, okay? So when we talk about word reading, this would be what we would do. So we would have these words, and you know what? We might be crazy. We might read them straight across. We might go all over the place here. But what we do is we do some signaling. So, do you want to demonstrate? Or do you want me to demonstrate this?
You've got the paper, so I'm going to let you do it.
Okay,
'cause I
sounds
can't
good.
actually see it.
I'm kind of holding it a little bit here. So, what we do is we point up here. We might have it projected up on the boards. We might use a laser pointer. We might do all sorts of fancy things here, right? But we would point to the word, and kids at home, play on with us here. Parents at home, play along with us here. I want to make sure I hear everybody out there, all right? So, here we'd look at the word. When I'm pointing at the word, you're thinking about the word. So, again, don't say it yet here. And then we would say something like, all right, here we go. Ready? Word. And then you read the word, and you just keep doing that. We'd go jumping around, right? And we would go talk about all this. This is one of the things I really do love about Sunday Phonics is the vocabulary is super rich, okay? When else would you read the word Hulk unless you're watching like a Marvel movie, right? And then what does that word mean, other than just a big green dude? It means there's other things, So we would talk about some of that stuff, which is really kind of cool. So they always mix in these weird words that we don't use in normal, daily language. And so we can kind of talk a little bit about that, and so we can bump around. And so we would read this as a class or as a group, and then we might do some individual turns, and I'll call somebody and they would read, okay? So let's talk about the touch spelling and the finger spelling, okay? So if we're reading these words aloud and we make a mistake, Mrs. Pitton, what do we have to do? We stop.
So if anybody makes a mistake, we just stop, and the teacher will say trace, and then all of the kids, even if they got it right, all of the kids will trace the sounds on the table to get that tactile information in there. So your fingers are doing the tracing on the table. You'll say the sounds instead of the letters, unless it's a sight word. But
Sure.
And then you'll reread the word.
That's right. So if we were going to do the word shake, and we made a mistake, that's okay. Hey, everybody, this word is shake. What word? Shake. And then we would touch spell. Yeah. And then we'd take our fingers, and then we would draw on our leg, on the table, something so we just feel it with our fingers. And our middle finger is our best one to feel with them, okay? So we take our two fingers and we would feel with that. And then what we would do is with our fingers, we would trace out the word, we'd spell it as we say the sounds. That's what we would do, okay? So let's say we're writing these words now. We're writing these words on a piece of paper, and we make a mistake, or somebody makes a mistake. What do we do with that now?
So same thing, we just stop, we trace again, but when we're writing words, we make sure we stretch out, so I'll hold my hand up. So if we were doing shake, we do SH is a sound. So instead of doing every letter and how many letters are in the word, we do sounds. So shake would be sh, a, k, 3 sounds because SH makes 1 sound. So we would stretch it out first, and then same thing, trace on the table. If we get it incorrect, we trace the sounds on the table.
Yep. And we also have a thing called touch spelling, where we have our fingers, okay? And that's good because it isolates sounds. So maybe we're having a hard time with vowels. And that's just a common thing. We have a hard time with vowels, and so we might want to say a word, and we stop on a sound, and we grab that sound, and we say, what's that sound? Oh, yeah, that's the I know what that one is, and then we can get that one. So we have a little correction system kind of built in for the students to do that with, and that just kind of helps with some extra practice. So if we miss a word, let's practice it a few times. Let's get used to seeing it. Let's get used to that sound, whatever it is that we're missing. Our teachers are fantastic about putting some extra help in there. So if we know that this sound is hard, we're going to give you a little prompts, right? We're going to be successful. The whole point of Sunday Phonics is being successful at reading. Not being frustrated, not being overwhelmed. We want to be successful. So let's talk about sentence reading. So we would actually read sentences as well too. And it could be a couple ways. Just like I said, we might, for our emerging readers, we might go word by word first and then maybe read it fast. Maybe for our kiddos who are reading pretty well, we might say, hey, look at this sentence, get ready, and then we just read it quickly through. So it kind of all depends. There is no real right or wrong of how you do this, or everybody does it the same way. It truly is a breakdown of how kids need it. And so if they need some extra help, we're going to give them extra help. If they're ready to roll, we're going to let them roll. So that's just kind of how it goes. So thank you for helping us out with our Sunday Phonics stuff. We have, before you leave, we have giveaways, and we have somebody who's already won a prize. And so, what do you call a fake noodle? Do you know the answer?
I don't.
An impasta.
Nice. That's a good dad joke.
Yes, that's right. So Raya has won. Raya Chalberg has won. Steal the bacon.
Nice.
First one to answer correctly with impasta. Let's do another giveaway. How about that? All right, this one's a fun one. Okay. Now, this game, I don't know if you've ever played this game. Taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza.
I have played this game. I'm very bad at this game, but I actually have played this game. And it's very fun.
You can't see
bummer.
it. You can't see
Well, just know that it's really fun and cool, I guess.
It's not even green, it's like yellow, but it is a really cool game. It's a really cool game. We're just going to pretend that you can see it. I can't stand this game.
Yeah.
My kids kill me at this. I'm
Yeah.
terrible.
I think
I'm
it's
too
more, I
slow.
think kids are better at this game,
I think they
honestly.
are. And like the pounding in your chest stuff. Now, I'm not going to give it away. I don't want any spoilers, but it's a really fun game if you're like that stuff. I don't know. I'm too slow. I don't know.
Same.
I'm too slow and old, I think is what it is. And I don't know. It's just one of those things. But we're going to give away one of these here. And here's how we're going to do it. Looking at your Pokemon cards. Again, here we go. You are looking for, because I have hidden the words taco, cat, goat, cheese, and pizza on some of those cards. So your goal is to go find all of the teachers that have those words hidden into the cards and post. Be the first person to post. And I'm going to give you a hint. There's 5 words, 4 cards. Okay, 4 cards. So if you could be the first person to give me the 4 names of the teachers that have taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza in their cards or on their cards, you will win this. It's not see-through thing. It's very, very much opaque. But here we are. There we are. So that's going to be our giveaway for this. Mrs. Pittum, thank you so much for joining us. First time. We had 2 first-timers on curriculum night. How about that? 2 first-timers. And now we're going to have some more people in here in just a second who've been here before. They've done this. They know what's going on. They're excited to come share with you and talk to you about it. We're going to switch now. We've talked about assessments. We've talked about social emotional learning. We've talked about our phonics program. Let's talk about the rest of our curriculum. So all the other things that we do here, our reading program, our math program, our science program, our social studies program. And I have 3 of our first grade teachers, Mrs. Nicole Guth, Mrs. Gina Reimers, and Mrs. Carrie Brown are coming on right now. And I'm bouncing out because there's not enough room for me here too. So I'm going to stand off to the side. So come on in, ladies.
Hello.
Thank you all for joining us. I think all of you have been on curriculum night at some point in time or another. Some of you have been on it a couple of times. Some of you have only been on once, but that's okay. All right. So here we go. We're going to talk about some things, talking about our curriculum. So let's first talk about our state standards. Okay? So first of all, what are state standards? Who wants to jump up? Mrs. Brown, what are state standards?
They are the standards that many people came together at the state level and chose these standards based on grade level, the things kids need to know to be successful.
That's right. And so we do have what we call curriculum programs, okay? But those programs aren't necessarily what we teach. We teach our Nebraska state standards,
Yes.
right? And so we have state standards in all of our subjects. And if anybody wants to find those standards or look them over for themselves, we have them on our SydneyRaiders.org website. If you go to our strategic plan, another bonus point, hopefully Mr. Ayler's listening right now. If you go to our strategic plan, you can go into the learning tab there and you'll be able to find that in all of its glory of all of our different state standards that we have. Okay? So let's talk a little bit too about how, and I'm going to go back to you, Mrs. Brown, because Mrs. Brown, you and I, we've been in education for a little bit. It's been maybe a little more than 5 years.
Maybe.
How have those state standards changed? What's kind of the focus now?
Well, I would say it used to be very skill-based, that kids will know maybe math facts, or maybe they will know very specific things in science or social studies, and now it's much more investigative. It's much more concept based. Like, can you learn this? Do you know how to go about and attack this problem? So I would say it's changed that way.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit more common sense to me is
Yeah.
what it seems like, for sure. So Mrs. Guth, I'm going to switch over to you now here.
Sure.
So how do we, or what do we do to incorporate standards into our learning?
Well, we're looking at what we're teaching, and we're looking at those standards and making sure that they match and they align. When we're teaching them, we're looking at students' knowledge of each concept and how we need to adapt those.
And so talk to us about what is a priority standard, or what would we do with a priority standard?
So those are the important standards that we've identified as grade levels that are crucial for students to know in order to succeed for the next grade level. So each grade level kind of correlates into the next one.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, parents, there are a ton of standards. And so sometimes it's just hard to cram that all in there, so we have to identify the ones that are the most important that we want to hit at each grade level. Okay, so how did those standards then, this is another good question for you, Mrs. Reimers, how did those standards kind of lead into next year's standards?
So, like, first grade standards are like foundational skills to what they will be learning in second grade. So, like, two-digit addition might lead into three-digit addition in second grade, and just really setting that foundation and giving them a chance to build upon what they know in later grades.
Absolutely. It's kind of like building blocks or stepping stones
yeah.
to the next grade level. That's exactly right. So let's actually talk about the things that we do here at South. One of the things in math is a program called ZERN, which was new to us last year. We're into second year right now. So Mrs. Guth, can you tell us, what's the big focus of ZERN math?
So ZERN math is broken into missions, and our big focus is just correlate with our state standards. So things like geometry and shapes, number sense, making a 10, adding and subtracting, measurement using length, telling time. It correlates with those standards, but it also correlates with what we're testing too.
Very good. Yep, exactly. So like here's one thing, and we do a lot with this, is make a 10. Like, what's make a 10? And why do kids have to make 10s all the time?
So a lot of times in ZERN math, what we're doing is we're teaching strategies. We're not teaching that this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way to do it, this is the answer, this is not the answer. But how do we get to the answer? And sometimes it's not just black and white, this is how we write it on paper. Sometimes we're looking at how does our brain work? How does our brain think? Sometimes we do that automatically without even knowing it. So if we have something like 9 plus 5, I'm automatically adding 9 plus 1 plus 4. So making a 10 is using that 9 plus 1 more plus the 4 I have left over. And our brain sometimes does things automatically without us actually realizing it. And so it's making children aware of, hey, this is what our brains are sometimes doing, and this is a strategy I can use when I'm working in math.
Yeah. Now, when I was taught math, 9 plus 5 was just 9 plus 5, and you just knew it was 14. Okay? And it seems like an extra step to have to break this little number into two different numbers. Now I'm adding 3. And so it seems a little silly. So why those extra steps? Well, just like we talked about before, builds into the next kind of skill. And so, yeah, 9 plus 5, and we're doing it in kind of a hard, roundabout way, adding an extra step. But then when we get into those bigger addition skills, when we're talking about 49 plus 35, we're able to do that same kind of a thing, right? Yeah, so all those things, those extra steps, they seem silly when we're first starting to learn, but it builds into all of the good stuff when we do it later on, okay? Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about our Wonders Reading program now. What is our big focus during Wonders Reading? Who wants to take that one?
I think I will.
All right.
I think our big focus is we kind of look at some of those big components, comprehension, fluency, phonics, vocabulary, and we teach those big components within reading.
So phonics teaches the skills to how to read. Wonders is, what do you do with that?
Yes.
What do you do with that? Reading stories, getting information from it, learning vocabulary, all that great stuff. So then how does our writing and our grammar tie in with reading then? Does that all go together too?
In order for them to be able to write those words, they need to know how to sound out the words and spell the words and things like that. So they go pretty hand in hand with writing and reading.
And I think one of the things too that you'll probably agree with is like throughout your day when we're doing a lot of our subjects, there's just a lot of crossover. A lot of the skills that we learn in one subject we take to another subject. So in writing and grammar, we're using a lot of those reading skills, a lot of those things, which is kind of cool. So let's talk about something that helps us with our math and our ELA, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, and that is something new this year called Freckle. So Freckle is new for us this year. We used to use a program called ScoopPad, which then got changed into Mosaic, and then those people shut it down, and we're not going to say anything else other than Mr. Meyer was very mad the day he got that email. But we went out and we found a new program that kind of does the same stuff, and actually even a little bit more, called Freckle. Okay, so how do we use Freckle to help us with math and ELA? Mrs. Brown.
Well, I love Freckle because it's so individualized to the student. It figures out the student and what the student needs, and it monitors how they're doing. Plus, it gives me feedback. And I know when I need to talk to a student and say, hey, I need to do a little quick mini lesson here. And so that's very, very helpful. And I really like how the students are very motivated by, they get to go to a store with coins, and Now, Freckle was super smart, and they only let him shop at the store for 90 seconds. And but they just love changing their little, what's the little guy's name?
I don't
An
know.
avatar?
It's a pig.
It's a little,
Yeah,
Okay.
It can be a
It's an
fox.
avatar.
Too. It can be a fox too.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And change the clothes and hairstyle, and and of course it kicks them out after 90 seconds. Then they got to do some more work. Yeah, and then it works with ELA's English language and also with the math
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah, and so it's a little different than our other programs because our other programs have digital components as well. Wonders has digital components, Zern Math has digital components, and our students work on that. The difference with Freckle, though, is that Freckle isn't necessarily teaching the same exact thing that you're teaching right now. And so this is where, when I showed you all of our growth there in MAPS scores, this is where it comes from because students are getting access to skills above grade level, below grade level in Freckle, and on grade level with our actual curriculum, with our Wonders, with our Zern. And that's what sets us apart. That's what puts us higher than anybody else because we're giving students what they need when they need it and giving them the access to those things. And Freckle is a big part of that. So yeah, they might be working in Freckle on a skill completely different than what we're actually teaching in math. But that's a great thing because we're teaching them skills of how to practice and how to attack problems and not be afraid of something that's tough, right?
Yeah.
So now let's go. I'm going to keep with you, Mrs. Brown.
Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit about our science curriculum. What's the focus on our science curriculum?
Our science curriculum really focuses on investigation, looking at the world, asking questions, simple questions about things that, and making observations. And so the kids go through. You give them guidance and lots of tape, but you give them guidance. You ask questions so that they can kind of dig into a concept on their own. And then they start asking questions and they start wondering about things, and that's when you really know the growth is happening. So you might guide them over. You might say, hey, go ask this group a question. They had that same question. So teaching them to communicate between themselves with that. So you're going to see a lot of things like create something to prove that sound waves exist, or how can you communicate with sound waves in a different way than we usually think about communication. So there's find your evidence. Lots of things like that. Encourage kids to take risks. I think that's a huge piece of science. That if it fails, it's okay. That gives you an opportunity to redesign. And I love when they use those words where they're talking, I'm making a claim. And they'll use those kinds of words in first grade, and they really are scientists.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of where we've had like a big change in in previous, like when we talked about our change in our standards. It used to be skill-based, and it used to be you just had to know this thing, and now it's more about a process. You know, how do I do something, and then how do I fix it? How do I problem solve it? You know, those sorts of things. We're really truly being a scientist.
Yeah, we've changed from doing activities to doing really investigations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's messy.
Yes, and
it's
loud.
fun, it is loud, and it's a great time. Absolutely. All right, Mrs. Reimers, let's go switch again, and we're going to talk a little bit about social studies. So tell us a little bit about our social studies curriculum.
So our social studies curriculum is newer. We just recently adopted it, and it really teaches the students like how to be a good citizen and how to know the difference between a want and a need, and just how to get along with others. And I feel like it does a really good job of putting it at their level, and there are online components that they can use as well, and different leveled readers that go with it. And so it's just a lot of different ways for them to just learn about how to be a citizen and their world around them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is kind of when we talk about how it leads into other grade levels. Social studies truly starts very small with the person. And then it just slowly kind of starts circling its way out. So we talk a little bit about communities, and we talk about our nation, and we talk about the world, and it just kind of keeps growing as the kids get older and gets wider and wider as far as that goes. So social studies also very fun, kind of, and a lot more reading kind of goes along with it, which is good. But reading about fun stuff, all right, we have also a new art program. We've always done art in action in the past, and we've switched to the Great Artist Program. Mrs. Guth, can you tell us a little bit about how we incorporate art in our elementary classroom, even if it's as new as it's been?
Yeah, we just throw glitter everywhere. No, so the Great Artist Program focuses on 9 individual artists
And each grade level actually focuses on the same 9 artists, and it just looks a little different in each grade level. We're teaching students techniques, we're teaching them a little bit about the artist, and then we're also teaching them how to use different tools in art, oil pastels, paints, watercolors, ink, roller, sponges, all of those things. And they're learning about the artist while they're creating one of those artist's pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So that I think is probably one of the coolest things is that your first or second grader is going to be doing the same art lesson that a fifth or sixth grader is going to be doing. And it's going to be the same way every single year, which is great. So next year they'll have 9 different artists that they'll practice and learn different techniques and things for. So we're very excited about our art program. It's just definitely one of those things that we're just starting to get into. So excited to keep that going. All right, so those are a lot of the big things that we do here, okay? And you'll kind of notice that really each of those subjects kind of has a different focus or a delivery of how we do the instruction. So some of our programs like Sunday Phonics, Wonders Reading, Zern Math are a very direct instruction where we teach, they listen, and they respond, and they interact in that way. And then we have some more kind of free will ones like our science, our social studies, our art program. So we really want to kind of create that balanced approach. So we're not just having our bottoms in chairs all day long, but we're actually getting a chance to move around, interact in different ways, do some small group activities. It's a very balanced approach that we take here. So let's talk a little bit about differentiation and how we accomplish this at South. And so let's start with, who wants to tell us, what does differentiation mean in the classroom?
I would say it kind of goes back to win in a way. It's giving each student what they need. So one student might be writing complete sentences. Another student, you might be giving them a sentence frame and helping them create how they want their sentence to look, but they might only have 1 or 2 words that they're going to play around with. Some kids might be writing 2 or 3 related sentences in first grade, which of course then builds into second grade when they're writing the introductory, the details, and then writing a conclusion as well. So
yeah. And then not only that, but then teaching the kids to know that, hey, each one of us learns differently, and some of us need help in other ways.
Absolutely.
So that's a big way. And so, yeah, just kind of giving those extra supports is a way. How about small instruction or small group instruction? How does that help towards differentiation, Mrs. Guth?
Well, when we are broken up into small groups, we're working on what that individual group needs. Whether that's, like Mrs. Brown said, writing a complete sentence or only working on 2 words. In win time, it might be a different level of instruction, writing not only letters and sounds and words, but complete sentences too. Or there might be just a focus on just letters and sounds, depending on what each group needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're very flexible groups.
Yes.
Kids can move around, and in some classes like math, kids choose their own groups. Hey, do I really understand this and I'm ready to go? I'm going to go do that. If I need more help, I'm going to stay right here next to my teacher.
Absolutely.
And so they make their own decisions sometimes and differentiate themselves.
Right.
And
right.
somebody can move away and say, I got this, and then think, oh, I don't. And they'll move right back in the same lesson.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, getting them to identify where they're at in their learning is a huge thing. That's a big thing that's in education now, and it wasn't ever that way before, and now it is. And we just let our kids, and the kids get it, and they understand it. All right, so we have a lot of parents that are watching this right now. If they want to supplement their child's learning, what are some ways that they can help out? Other than, we already did talk a lot about reading. Reading is just probably number 1. Just read with your kids, read as much as you can, read and do those things. What else can they do at home to kind of help out?
Log into Clever.
Yeah.
Log into Clever, and you can use Freckle at home. If students need to catch up on things on Zern, they can access Zern from their Clever login. Lots of teachers have extra things on their Clever apps, such as Prodigy Math or other things that they might use in their classroom that they can use at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do they log on Clever? What do they do? What do they need for that?
They just need their QR code. A lot of teachers have those attached to their take-home folders. I know for my class, they're just on the back of the folder. And Mrs. Reamer's too.
Yep,
So
mine
you
is
just
too.
have to, there you go.
Yeah.
So you just have to scan that code with the Clever app.
Do you have to download Clever?
You do, I think, yeah.
Okay.
I
No,
think you
they
can go to
can
the
all-
web too.
Yeah, they can go to clever.com
They-
as well.
But they download it or they go through clever.com?
Yeah,
Okay.
clever.com.
I've had that question.
Yep, either one of those things, yeah. And what Clever is just a place for all of their logins to be held in. So instead of having to remember what your login and password is for every single website, Clever just takes care of it for you. So if you're logged into Clever, you can just jump in and know that that's your child's account and it's the right password, it's the right username. It just kind of makes it a little easier, which is great for our little first and second graders because usernames and passwords, if I'm sure parents out there can agree, they are never easy to remember or type in. And so we have to have some sort of alphanumeric whatever. It's tough for our kiddos to do here. So yeah, definitely. Utilize those things at home. Clever, using and getting into Freckle, getting into all the other apps that we have, reading at home. Those are the best ways to help and support that learning at home.
They even can do music now on
Yeah.
Clever.
Absolutely, yeah. We have
doing
our
Quaver.
music program. Mrs. Michaelman uses Quaver, is what's called, and they can jump on and do that too. Yeah, so all that. I think next year we're going to have the special teachers come on a little bit too. That's
Cool.
gonna be a segment. That's going to be a
I like
new
that.
segment for next year.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we're going to do. All right, well, thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight.
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
slide on in there. We're going to do some more giveaways and wrap this thing up. We're almost finished tonight. All right, so I come back into frame. All right, we had a winner for taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. Got them in the right order. Macy Schneider. Macy Schneider winning the fun game. I just forgot the name of it. Taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. That's what you're winning, right? It's very good. I have 2 more things to give away. I'm going to do my final little wrap up and we'll be ready to roll here. So here's our next one. Okay, 3rd giveaway. This one is for, and you can see this one. How about that? Llama Drama. Llama Drama is our giveaway. And here's what you're going to do. Looking on those Pokemon cards again, I need you to find the 2 teachers we have here at South who have at some point in their life lived outside of the United States. We have 2 teachers who are globetrotters. 2 teachers that have lived outside the United States. You're going to check out those Pokemon cards. First person to answer correctly with that is going to win Llama Drama. Very good. Okay? All right. So I have one final giveaway to give away, but I'm going to give that at the very, 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 very end. Okay? So here we go. This is my wrap up for you. I appreciate all of you so much for coming and joining us tonight. Learning about your child's school day is so important. I mean, there's just so much stuff that happens here at school, and it's just a lot of stuff that just doesn't get seen. And so getting you guys to be able to be incorporated here and to like be involved with this is just huge. So I really thank you for that. I have a challenge for you. I have a challenge for all the parents out there. And I'm going to start a story first. So I officiate sports. I officiate baseball. I officiate basketball. I officiate football. And so every Friday night here in the fall, that's where I'm at. I'm on a football field somewhere, and I'm doing a game. And it just so happened last Friday I was at Hyannis. And if you don't know where Hyannis is, don't worry. Neither is anybody else. But this is a little east of Alliance. But I was there in Hyannis, and we were there a little early. And of course, the Husker game was last Friday, and so they had the Husker game up in their lecture hall. And so a couple of us referees, after we got dressed and we were kind of just waiting around, we went in there. We were watching the Husker game. Awful start to it, by the way. It was terrible. So we're watching this, and I'm sitting in there, and out of the side here come 2 people. 2 people come in, and I look over there, and I swear, I was like, gosh, I think that's my old speech teacher. But it was kind of dark, and they were off over the side, and they were getting ready for one acts. And so they're walking around the stage, and they were, kind of going around. And then they kind of walked over to us and started talking to us. And sure enough, it was my old speech teacher, Miss Christian, who's now Mrs. Gentry. And she looks at me. It's been 22 years, okay? 22 years since I was in her class or on her speech team. And she looks at me and she says, "Do I know you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was your former student." And then, of course, I gave her a big hug, and she remembered me right away. Well, here's what was cool about it. Miss Christian was my absolute favorite teacher. She had probably one of the biggest impacts on me as a person. I took her speech class as a sophomore. She said, "Rick, you got to be on the speech team." She talked me into it. I got on the speech team. I was on there for 2 years, my junior and senior year. I did entertainment speaking. I did a couple of other things, but entertainment was my jam, right? And so senior year, I'm working on my speech, going to meets, doing all other things. But Miss Christian was so good. Like, she had a gift. Like, if she was listening to me right now, she would probably be like cringing, because she is able to figure out how you should say something to get the most impact. And it was crazy. So a story with this is we had team practices for speech, and you'd have to go in, and everybody would, you did it in front of everybody. But then you also do individual practices too. So you would go in, and it would be Miss Christian by your desk, and you standing there giving your speech. And so here I am, 7.5 minute entertainment speech, okay? It took our practice an hour and 15 minutes to get finished because she would stop me after about every other word. No, say it this way. Okay, try it again. No, say it this way. Do it again. No, this way. Okay. Now, all right, now start it over from the beginning. And it was just that constant. Like she just wouldn't let you slide. You had to say it the right way, and then you had to do it from the beginning. So my 7.5-minute speech, it took me an hour and 15 minutes. And I still joke to people to this day. If you can last through a speech practice with Miss Christian, you can speak in front of anybody in the world because it's no problem after that. I remember going after, other kids would come out of practice and they would be just bawling and in tears, and it was tough. She just grilled you, and she, I'm doing an entertainment speech. She never cracked a smile. She never laughed. She never nothing. She just told me, stop, do it again. Stop, do it again. Because she cared though. And the thing that was crazy about that, after that big long practice, I went to the next meet, took first place. Because what she did made an impact. And she was so great. And I knew what she was doing was not to be mean, not to pick on me. It came from a place of love. She cared about me. She cared about how I did. And she cared about the things that I could do. So reaching back and touching base with her 22 years later was fantastic. And we reminisced about, all of our speech stuff that we went through and kind of talked about where we were at and stuff like that. But so my challenge for you parents is to remember back when you were in school. Could be high school, could be grade school, wherever it happens to be. Think about your favorite teacher. Think about that person, what they meant to you, the things that you remember about them. And I want you to tell your child about that. I want you to tell your child about your favorite teacher, what they did, what they meant to you, just who that person was, how they may have impacted your life. Maybe they steered you to a direction that was good. Like I use my public speaking skills, even though I'm now not talking very well. I use my public speaking skills every day, and it was that confidence that she gave me that allows me to sit in front of a camera, or to sit in front of people, or to talk in front of our staff. Those things are not an issue for me. I don't get nervous about that stuff because it's way easier than sitting in front of a practice with her, So tell your child about that. That's kind of what I want to hear. So that's your challenge. Before you do that, though, before we jump off, I have one last giveaway, and I think we have our winner for our last one. It's coming over. Our winner, Kyler Watchorn, winning Llama Drama. Kyler Watchorn figured out who lived across, or not in our country. I believe it was Miss May and Mrs. Brown. Lived over in a different country. How about that? Isn't that crazy? I didn't know that. I didn't know that until I made my Pokemon cards. Alrighty, so here we go. I'm going to be I'm not going to take the stream off air so you can answer this last question here, but I will be kind of cutting the video out here in just a second. But our last giveaway is for a game called Doozy Dice. Look at that, Doozy Dice. Kind of a fun game. How low can you roll, it says. I have no idea. I've never played this game before, but it seems like a very cool game. So 2 to 4 players around our age group. All right, so here's what we're going to look for. Last thing, looking on the Pokemon cards, okay? How many coffee drinkers do we have? And I'll give you a hint. I am not one of them. Not going to drink that at all. So how many coffee drinkers do we have here at South Elementary? First person to answer with the correct gets Doozy Dice. So there you go. Start looking at those Pokemon cards. Just a reminder, if you did happen to, or hopefully you had a chance to, post on social media your setup, you could win the Rapid Rumble game. And I'm not going to pull it in here because I got it stacked on everything else. But a random draw, if you posted your child's name in the chat at some point in time tonight, you'll be entered in to win the Giant Sorry game. And you'll have to invite me over to play it first with you because I love the Giant board games. They're so awesome. So there we go. There we have it. Thank you all for showing up to us tonight, watching this. If you're watching this recorded, I thank you just as much. We had a great night. Lots of good guests. Got lots of information out there for you. All right, everybody. You do not have school tomorrow. Us teachers have school tomorrow, but you guys do not. So enjoy sleeping in. Those of you can sleep in. Stay in your jammies all day long. Have a good time. Have a good week. And have a good weekend, I guess is what we want to say. And then I will see you guys all next week. Parent-teacher conferences are next week on Wednesday and Thursday. I think everybody has hopefully gotten signed up for those. We'll love seeing you at that time. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to stop babbling now. And we're going to leave the live stream up for a little bit longer until we make sure we have our prize winners, make sure everybody got their stuff entered in. But otherwise, have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out with us.